The truth is exposed. The mirror is sealed. But the real battle is just beginning. In Volume 2, Promise and Alice face their greatest test yet as a spirit rift tears the fortress apart. Alice must make an impossible choice, and Promise will discover just how far he's willing to go to keep his mate. Make sure you've watched Volume 1 first if you haven't already. And grab your free bonus ebook. Her husband humiliated her because of infertility until the Alpha King marked her, by clicking the link in the pinned comment. Now let's see what happens next. Chapter 4. The Truth Unveiled. Promise's voice cut through the silence like a blade. Alice! She stood frozen in the courtyard archway, her shawl whipping around her in the night wind. The moonlight caught her face at an angle that made her eyes shimmer with an otherworldly luminescence. Not the milky blindness she'd worn for 7 years, but something crystalline and aware. Something that saw far more than any mortal should. Your Majesty, she whispered, but her voice trembled with the knowledge that everything was about to shatter. Don't. He moved toward her slowly, deliberately, the way a predator approaches prey that might bolt at any sudden movement. Don't lie to me, not now. Alice's breath came shallow and quick. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to disappear into the shadows as she'd done 1,000 times before. But Promise blocked the only path back into the fortress, and behind her lay the open courtyard where guards patrolled. She was trapped. I don't know what you mean, sire, she tried, forcing her eyes to cloud over, resuming the performance that had protected her for so long. Stop it. His voice was low, dangerous. I saw you. Just now, in the corridor, the way the light bent around you, the way you moved, not like someone blind, but like someone who sees everything. He took another step closer. And your eyes. God help me, Alice. I saw your eyes. The pretense crumbled. She couldn't hold it anymore. Not with him standing so close. Not with his wolf calling to hers in a way that made her entire body ache with recognition. Her eyes cleared completely, blazing with the spirit sight she'd suppressed for 7 years, and she watched his face transform from suspicion to shock, to something deeper, more primal. What are you? He breathed. Someone who should have left a long time ago, she said, her voice breaking. Before she could move, he closed the distance between them and gripped her arm, not roughly, but firmly enough that escape was impossible. The library. Now. And if you try to run, I'll have every guard in this fortress hunting you before dawn. He didn't give her a choice. The fortress library felt different at night, vast and shadowed, filled with the weight of centuries. Promise shut the heavy doors behind them and turned the lock with a deliberate click that echoed through the vaulted chamber. Alice backed away instinctively, her eyes darting toward the high windows, calculating escape routes she knew were impossible. Sit, he commanded, gesturing toward one of the reading chairs near the cold hearth. Your Majesty, please, I said sit. The alpha authority in his voice made her wolf whimper submissively, and she sank into the chair before she could stop herself. Promise remained standing, arms crossed over his chest, his amber eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her feel stripped bare. 7 years, he said quietly. You've been in my fortress for 7 years, and I never once questioned why a blind servant moved through these halls with such certainty. Why you never stumbled in unfamiliar rooms. Why you always seemed to know when someone was approaching before they spoke. He leaned against the desk, his knuckles white where he gripped the edge. I thought I was imagining things. That my wolf was restless because of the borderland threats, but it wasn't that, was it? Alice's throat tightened. No. Then what? When she didn't answer immediately, his voice dropped to something almost pleading. Alice, what are you? The dam broke. 7 years of silence, of hiding, of suffocating under the weight of her own lies. It all came pouring out in a rush of words she couldn't control. I'm a spirit walker, she said, and watched his eyes widen. I can see the spirit realm, the parallel world that exists alongside this one. I see the dead who haven't moved on. I see the wards your ancestors wove into these walls. I see the curses and blessings and ancient magic that most people will never know exists. Her hands trembled in her lap. My bloodline is pure, untainted. There are people, collectors, hunters, traffickers, who would pay fortunes to own someone like me, to use my gift to navigate the spirit realms, to find cursed artifacts, to break seals that should never be broken. Promise said nothing, but she saw the muscle in his jaw tighten. 7 years ago, they found my family, she continued, her voice hollow. The collectors. They killed my parents while I hid in the cellar. When they found me, they saw my eyes glowing and knew immediately what I was worth. I managed to escape, but I knew they'd never stop hunting me, so I made myself worthless. She gestured to her face. I pretended to be blind. I made myself invisible. I thought if I could just disappear, become nothing, they'd forget about me. You came here, he said slowly, piecing it together. Your fortress was the safest place I could think of. Strong walls, powerful alpha. I thought I could hide here until they gave up looking. A bitter laugh escaped her. I was naive. They never give up. The borderland disturbances, Promise said, Ayed, his voice hardening. The strange tracks my scouts couldn't identify. They're here for you. Yes. And you said nothing. Anger flared in his eyes now, not just at the deception, but at the danger she'd brought to his people. You let me double patrols, mobilize my forces, question my own men, and you said nothing. I was going to leave. The words burst from her desperately. I was going to disappear before they got too close, before anyone got hurt because of me. I never meant... Her voice cracked. I never meant to put your people in danger. I never meant to stay this long. Then why did you? The question hung between them like a blade. Alice looked away, unable to meet his eyes, unable to speak the truth that would make everything worse. But Promise moved closer, crouching before her chair so she had no choice but to look at him. Why did you stay, Alice? Because of you, she whispered. The confession shattered something in the air between them. Promise's breath caught, and his wolf, which had been pacing restlessly inside him since the moment he'd seen her eyes glow, suddenly went utterly still. Recognition flooded through him like lightning, pieces clicking into place with devastating clarity. The 7 years of inexplicable restlessness. The way his wolf always pulled him toward the servant's wing when he couldn't sleep. The scent of honey and starlight that haunted his dreams but never had a source. The impossible, undeniable pull toward a blind servant girl he'd barely looked at. Mate, his wolf whispered with absolute certainty. She's ours. She's always been ours. No, Promise said aloud, stumbling backward. That's not possible. But Alice's face told him everything. The way her eyes filled with tears, the way her wolf pressed against her skin as if trying to reach him, she'd known. God help them both. She'd known for 7 years and said nothing. You knew, he said, his voice raw. All this time, you knew we were mates. I couldn't claim you, she said, tears spilling down her cheeks. I was nobody, a servant, a liar. How could I ever... She covered her face with her hands. I was going to leave. I swear I was going to leave before you ever found out. Promise's world tilted on its axis. 7 years. 7 years of having his mate within reach and never knowing it. 7 years of her suffering in silence, hiding, loving him from the shadows while he looked right through her. The rage came first, hot and consuming. Rage at her deception, at the danger she'd brought, at the years stolen from them. But beneath it, drowning it out, was something far more powerful, the overwhelming need to protect her, to claim her, to make sure no hunter, no collector, no threat ever touched her again. Show me, he said roughly. What? Your gift. Show me what you see. Alice hesitated, then slowly let the spirit sight blaze fully to life. Her eyes glowed with ethereal light, and the air around her seemed to shimmer. She lifted her hand and pointed toward the far corner of the library. There's a woman there, she said softly. She's been bound to this room for 200 years. She was a scholar who discovered something she shouldn't have. A text about opening gateways between realms. She tried to destroy it, but your ancestor's advisor killed her for it. She's been trying to warn people ever since, but no one can hear her. Promise looked where she pointed and saw nothing but shadows. But Alice's face, her face showed such profound sadness, such certainty, that he believed her. "What else?" he asked. "The walls." She stood and moved to the nearest bookshelf, her fingers trailing along the stone. "Your ancestors wove protection into every brick. Silver thread magic bound with blood oaths. It's why dark magic can't take root here. Why do curses slide off these walls like water?" She turned to face him. "But they're weakening. Someone's been tampering with them." "Castellan," Promise said grimly, and saw her eyes widen. "I've suspected him for days. He's been too eager to dismiss threats, too ready with explanations that don't quite fit." "He's working with them," Alice confirmed. "I overheard him tonight, talking to one of the hunters. They're planning something for tomorrow, before dusk." Before Promise could respond, a sharp crack split the air, like thunder, but wrong. Too close, too concentrated. The stones beneath their feet trembled, and the books on the shelves rattled violently. Alice's face went white. No, they can't be." "What? What is it?" "They're not just coming to capture me." She grabbed his arm, her eyes blazing with terror. "They're going to open a spirit rift. They're going to tear the veil between worlds." Another crack, louder this time. The very air in the library began to shimmer and distort. Promise felt it in his bones. Wrongness, like reality itself, was splitting at the seams. "Why would they—" "The obsidian mirror," Alice said rapidly, pulling him toward the door. "It's a cursed artifact that grants dominion over both realms, but it's hidden in the spirit world. The only way to find it is to tear open the veil wide enough to cross over, and the only person who can guide them through the spirit realm once they do is you," Promise finished darkly. "They're going to destroy your fortress to force me out. They'll kill everyone here if I don't surrender." The library doors burst open before they could move. Guards poured in, but not to help. They were pushed forward by force, weapons drawn but faces twisted with fear. Behind them came Castellan, and beside him, a scarred man Promise had never seen before. Ravel. "Your Majesty," Castellan said with mock formality that made Promise's wolf snarl. "I'm afraid I must insist you hand over the girl." Promise moved instantly, putting himself between Alice and the intruders. "You betrayed me." "I did what was necessary," Castellan replied coldly. "You've grown soft, Promise. Too concerned with honor, with protecting the weak. This kingdom needs strength. The obsidian mirror will give us that strength." "The mirror is a curse," Alice said from behind Promise. "It consumes whoever wields it. You'll doom this entire kingdom." Ravel smiled, showing teeth. "That's where you're wrong, Spirit Walker. We know how to control it. We just need you to guide us to it." "Never." "Then watch this fortress burn." Ravel raised his hand, and the air around them split apart. The spirit rift tore open like a wound in reality itself, a bleeding crack in the fabric of existence that spilled spectral light and howling wind into the library. Books flew from shelves. Windows shattered, and through the rift, Promise could see it. A parallel world of shadows and spirits, a realm where the dead walked and ancient powers slumbered. "Stop!" Alice screamed, but her voice was lost in the chaos. Castellan's guards moved forward, but Promise's wolf erupted. He shifted partially, claws extending, fangs elongating, eyes blazing amber. "If you want her," he snarled, "you'll have to go through me." The library descended into violence. Promise fought with the fury of an alpha protecting his mate, tearing through Castellan's corrupted guards with brutal efficiency. But Ravel wasn't fighting. He was widening the rift, pouring power into the tear between worlds until it grew large enough that things began to emerge from the other side. Spirit creatures. Twisted, malevolent entities that should never have crossed into the mortal realm. Alice watched the chaos unfold with horror, but something shifted in her. She'd spent 7 years hiding her power, suppressing her gift, making herself small and invisible. But as she watched Promise fighting to protect her, as she saw the fortress, the home that had sheltered her, beginning to tear apart, she made a choice. "Enough," she whispered. Her eyes blazed with light so intense it illuminated the entire library. The spirit sight that she'd kept locked away for 7 years erupted fully. And for the first time in her life, Alice Stone stopped hiding. The spirits in the room responded to her instantly. The bound scholar woman, the ancient protectors woven into the walls, even the malevolent entities crawling through the rift. They all turned toward her as if compelled. Because Alice wasn't just a spirit walker. She was something more. Something the collectors had never quite understood. She was a spirit weaver. Someone who could command the dead, manipulate the threads between worlds, anchor reality itself. "Close," she commanded the rift, and her voice resonated with power that made the stones shake. The tear in reality shuddered, contracting slightly. Ravel's eyes widened. "Impossible. No spirit walker has that kind of—" "I'm not just a walker," Alice said, stepping forward. The light around her intensified, and Promise, still fighting off guards, turned to stare at her in awe. "I'm a weaver, and this is my fortress now." She raised her hands, and the protective magic woven into the walls responded. Silver threads of ancient power rose from the stones like vines, wrapping around the spirit creatures and dragging them back through the rift. Ravel tried to maintain his hold on the tear, but Alice was stronger. She pulled at the fabric of reality itself, stitching the wound closed with pure will and power that made her entire body glow. "No!" Ravel lunged toward her, but Promise was faster. He slammed into the hunter, driving him back toward the closing rift. "You came to my home," Promise snarled. "Threatened my people. Tried to take what's mine." His eyes met Alice's across the chaos. "You made a fatal mistake." With a final surge of strength, he threw Ravel backward into the rift just as Alice sealed it shut. The hunter's scream cut off abruptly as reality snapped back into place, leaving only silence and scattered books in its wake. Castellan stood alone, surrounded by Promise's loyal guards who had finally overcome their corrupted brothers. The traitor's face was pale, his confidence shattered. "You'll hang for this," Promise said quietly, and Castellan was dragged away without resistance. When the library finally fell silent, Promise and Alice stood facing each other across the ruined room. She was still glowing faintly, her eyes blazing with residual power. He was bloodied and breathing hard, his partial shift slowly receding. "Your Majesty," she began, but he crossed the distance between them in 3 strides and pulled her into his arms. "Promise," he said roughly against her hair. "My name is Promise, and you're going to use it." She melted into him, 7 years of longing finally breaking free. "Promise," she whispered, and felt his arms tighten around her. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, pulling back to look at her face. 7 years, Alice. We could have had 7 years. "I was afraid," she admitted. "Afraid you'd send me away. Afraid the collectors would find me. Afraid of what I was and what it would cost you if anyone knew. And now? Now I'm more afraid of losing you." His wolf rumbled with satisfaction, finally settling after 7 years of restless searching. "You won't. I won't allow it." He cupped her face in his hands, his thumb brushing away the tears on her cheeks. "You're mine, Alice Stone. My mate, my spirit weaver, and I don't care who knows it." "The threat isn't over," she said urgently. "Ravel wasn't working alone. There will be others coming for me, King, for the mirror." "Then let them come." Promise's voice was steel. "But they'll have to go through me, through my entire pack, through every warrior in this kingdom. You're under my protection now, officially, permanently. Promise, you don't understand what you're— I understand perfectly." He pressed his forehead to hers, breathing her in. "I understand that I've wasted 7 years not seeing you. I understand that my wolf has been trying to tell me since the moment you arrived that you were mine. And I understand that whatever's coming, we face it together." Alice's breath caught. "Together? Did you think I'd let you fight alone?" A small smile tugged at his lips. "You might be a powerful spirit weaver, but you're still terrible at asking for help. Despite everything, she laughed, a broken, relieved sound. I've been alone for so long. Not anymore. He kissed her then, desperate and claiming in 7 years overdue. Alice's hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer, and for a moment the ruined library, the threat still looming, the uncertainty of their future, all of it faded. There was only this, only them, only the mate bond finally acknowledged and claimed. When they broke apart, breathless and shaking, Promise rested his forehead against hers. We need to prepare, he said quietly. If more hunters are coming, they are, Alice confirmed. And they'll bring everything they have. The obsidian mirror is too valuable. They'll burn your kingdom to get to me. Then we make sure they fail. He pulled back, his expression shifting into the alpha king she'd watched from the shadows for 7 years. Commanding, strategic, deadly. Can you show me what you see? All of it? She nodded. Then come with me. He took her hand, not with the careful distance he'd maintained as king to servant, but with the possessive certainty of a mate claiming what was his, and led her from the ruined library. They moved through the fortress corridors, and servants who'd known Alice as the blind girl for 7 years stopped and stared at the woman walking beside their king with eyes that blazed like starlight. The war room was already filled with commanders when they arrived. Every head turned toward Alice, confusion and suspicion clear on their faces. But Promise silenced them all with a single raised hand. This is Alice Stone, he announced, his voice carrying absolute authority. She is my mate and a spirit weaver of pure bloodline. Isat, everything that's happened, the borderland threats, Castellan's betrayal, tonight's attack, is connected to her. And from this moment forward, she is under my protection and my command. Shocked silence met his words. You're claiming her, General Thorne asked carefully. Sire, with respect, we know nothing about— I know everything I need to know, Promise cut him off. And if any of you have objections, you're welcome to voice them now before we move forward. No one spoke. Good, he turned to Alice. Show them. She stepped forward, letting her gift blaze fully. The room filled with ethereal light as she raised her hands, and suddenly the commanders could see what she saw. Faint impressions of the spirit realm overlaying reality. The protective wards. The weak points where Castellan had tampered with the fortress's defenses. The approaching darkness gathering at the borders. There, she said, pointing to a detailed map on the table. Her eyes glowed as she perceived things no one else could. They'll attack from 3 points simultaneously. The eastern wall where Castellan weakened the wards. The northern gate where the spirit realm is thinnest. And here, she touched the center of the fortress. They'll try to open another rift directly in the heart of your stronghold. How many? Promise asked. At least 30 hunters, maybe more. They're not just rogues. They're trained collectors. They have magic users, spirit walkers they've enslaved, and artifacts designed specifically to break through protective barriers. General Thorne leaned over the map, his earlier skepticism replaced by grim calculation. If they hit us from 3 directions at once, we'll be spread thin, Promise finished, which is why we don't defend, we attack first. Alice looked at him sharply. What? You can see them gathering, correct? You know where they are? Yes, but— Then we hit them before they're ready. We take the fight to them on our terms, not theirs. He looked around the room at his commanders. Mobilize every warrior. I want strike teams ready within the hour. Alice will guide us to their positions. You want me to lead you to them? Alice's voice rose with alarm. Promise, that's exactly what they want. If I leave the fortress, you won't be leaving the fortress. His eyes met hers with absolute certainty. You'll be standing here in this room, using your gift to guide my warriors through the spirit realm. You said you can see what others can't. Use that. Show us where they're vulnerable. Show us how to break them before they can organize their attack. Understanding dawned on Alice's face. I can mark their positions. Create spirit anchors that your warriors can follow even if they can't see the spirit realm themselves. Exactly. For the next hour, the war room became a hub of frenetic activity. Alice stood at the center of it all, her eyes blazing as she reached into the spirit realm and began weaving markers. ethereal beacons that Promise's warriors would perceive as instinct, as subtle pulls in the right direction. She showed them where the enemy gathered, where their wards were strongest, where their magic users concentrated their power. Promise coordinated the assault with brutal efficiency, but he never strayed far from Alice's side. His hand would brush her shoulder as he passed, grounding her. His voice would soften when he spoke to her, even as he commanded his forces with steel authority. "You're doing well," he murmured during a brief lull, and Alice felt tears prick her eyes at the simple acceptance in his tone. "I've never used my gift like this," she admitted. "I've always hidden it, suppressed it. Using it openly feels—" "Right?" he suggested, and she nodded. "Terrifying, but right." As dawn approached, the strike teams deployed. Alice watched through her spirit sight, perceiving the fortress warriors moving through the darkness like hunters themselves. They followed the markers she'd woven, closing in on the collector's positions from angles the enemy never anticipated. "They're scrambling," she reported, her voice tight with concentration. "Your teams hit them before their wards were fully established. They're trying to regroup, but—" She gasped suddenly, her body going rigid. "What?" Promise was at her side instantly. "What is it?" "There's something else. Something I didn't see before." Her eyes blazed brighter, and her voice filled with dread. "They have a spirit anchor. A massive one. They're not trying to open a rift to cross into the spirit realm. Then what? They're trying to pull something through, something that's been sealed away for centuries." She turned to him, terror written across her face. "The obsidian mirror isn't in the spirit realm. It's been there all along, sealed by your ancestors. And the collectors are trying to break that seal." "Where?" "The catacombs, beneath the fortress. There's a chamber your ancestors built specifically to contain it." Promise's blood ran cold. "We need to get down there now," but Alice shook her head. "If I go down there, if I get too close to the mirror, it will sense me. My power, it's exactly what the seal needs to break. That's why the collectors have been so desperate to capture me. I'm not just a guide, I'm the key." "Then we destroy it," Promise said flatly. "Whatever it takes." "You can't destroy it. No one can. That's why it was sealed instead." Alice's hands trembled. "But I can reinforce the seal. I can weave new protections around it, stronger than the old ones. Make it impossible for anyone to reach, even with my bloodline." "How long will that take?" "Hours, maybe longer, and I'll have to do it alone. If anyone else is in the chamber when I'm working, the backlash could kill them." "Absolutely not." Promise's voice was absolute. "I'm not leaving you alone down there." "Promise, please." "No." He grabbed her shoulders, forcing her to meet his eyes. "I just found you. After 7 years of not knowing, of searching without understanding what I was searching for, I finally have you. Do you really think I'm going to let you walk into danger alone? If you stay, you could die." "Then I die protecting my mate." His voice softened. "Alice, I've been half alive for 7 years. My wolf has been tearing me apart from the inside because it knew something was missing. You were missing. Now that I have you, now that I know what you are to me." He cupped her face gently. "There is nothing in any realm that will keep me from your side." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "You're an idiot." "Probably." He kissed her forehead. "But I'm your idiot. Now let's go save my kingdom." They descended into the catacombs together, leaving General Thorne in command of the surface battle. The ancient stone passages beneath the fortress were cold and dark, lit only by the ethereal glow of Alice's spirit sight. She could see them here, the ghosts of Promise's ancestors who had built these chambers, who had fought to seal away the obsidian mirror centuries ago. "They're proud of you," she whispered as they walked. "Your ancestors. They've been watching over this place, maintaining the seal even in death. They know what you're trying to do." Promise said nothing, but his hand found hers in the darkness and squeezed. The chamber itself was circular, carved from solid bedrock. In its center stood a pedestal, and on that pedestal sat the obsidian mirror, a disk of black glass so dark it seemed to absorb light itself. Chains of pure silver wrapped around it, etched with runes that pulsed weakly. The seal was failing. "They've been attacking it for weeks," Alice said, horrified. Slowly, carefully, chipping away at the protections. Castellan must have been helping them from the inside. No wonder the fortress felt different. The mirror's been leaking corruption. "Can you fix it?" "I think so, but promise—" She turned to him, her eyes desperate. "When I start weaving the new seal, the mirror is going to fight back. It's going to show you things. Terrible things. Truths you don't want to see, futures that might happen, past traumas you've buried. It feeds on fear and doubt and pain. You have to ignore it. No matter what it shows you." "I understand." "Do you?" She grabbed his shirt. "It will show you losing me. It will show you failing your people. It will show you every nightmare you've ever had and make them feel real. And I won't be able to help you because all my focus will be on the seal." "Alice." He covered her hands with his. "I've spent 7 years not knowing what was missing from my life. I've ruled this kingdom believing I had to be strong alone, that accepting help was weakness. But you've shown me something different. You've shown me that real strength is choosing to stand together even when it's terrifying." He pressed his forehead to hers. "So yes, I understand. And I'm still staying." She kissed him then, fierce and desperate and full of love she'd held back for too long. When they broke apart, her eyes were blazing with determination. "Then let's end this." Alice stepped forward and placed her hands on the pedestal. Immediately, her power flared, and the chamber filled with blinding light. She began to weave, not with thread or material, but with pure magic, with the essence of the spirit realm itself. Silver strands extended from her fingertips, wrapping around the mirror, reinforcing the failing chains, building layer upon layer of protection. The mirror screamed. It was a sound that existed beyond hearing, a psychic shriek that tore through Promise's mind like claws. Images flooded his consciousness, Alice being torn apart by hunters, his kingdom burning, his people died in the streets, his own reflection in the black glass, older and corrupted, wielding the mirror's power as his humanity crumbled away. "Not real," he growled, sinking to his knees. "Not real." But it felt real. The mirror showed him Alice turning away from him in disgust when she learned every dark thing he'd ever done to protect his kingdom. It showed him his wolf going feral, killing innocents. It showed him alone in an empty fortress, everyone he'd ever loved dead by his own hand. "Promise, hold on." Alice's voice sounded distant, strained. He tried. God, he tried. But the visions kept coming, each one more visceral than the last. He saw his own death 100 different ways. Saw Alice choosing to leave him. Saw his kingdom fall to ruin because he'd been too weak, too soft, too human. "You're not enough," the mirror whispered in his mind. "You've never been enough. Your father knew it. Your pack knows it. Even she knows it. You're just a pretender playing at being king." "Shut up," Promise snarled, but doubt crept in. What if it was right? What if he wasn't strong enough to protect Alice from what was coming? What if claiming she had only put her in more danger? "Promise." Alice's scream cut through the visions. "Don't listen to it. Focus on me. Focus on us." He latched onto her voice like a lifeline. Through the chaos in his mind, he found the mate bond, that golden thread connecting them that he'd only just begun to understand. He pulled on it, using it to anchor himself to reality. "That's it," Alice gasped, still weaving. "Stay with me just a little longer." Promise focused on the bond, on the way it felt like coming home. On 7 years of his wolf pulling him toward her without understanding why. On the way, her eyes blazed with power and determination even as exhaustion threatened to drag her under. In the future they could have if they could just survive this moment. "I see you," he said aloud, forcing the words through gritted teeth. "Alice Stone, Spirit Weaver, my mate. I see you, and nothing the mirror shows me can change that." The visions faltered. "I see you," he repeated louder this time, "and I choose you. Over power, over certainty, over every cursed future this thing wants to show me. I choose you." Alice's magic surged, fed by his acceptance, by the strength of their bond. The seal she was weaving blazed with golden light, reinforcing not just the physical chains but the spiritual bonds that held the mirror contained. She poured everything into it, 7 years of hidden power, of suppressed magic, of love held in silence. With a final ear-splitting shriek, the mirror's resistance shattered. Alice's seal locked into place, layer upon layer of unbreakable protection that would last for centuries. The black glass went dark and dormant, its corruption contained once more. Alice collapsed. Promise caught her before she hit the ground, his arms wrapping around her as they both sank to the chamber floor. She was trembling, exhausted, her eyes no longer glowing but returned to their normal crystalline clarity. "Is it done?" he asked hoarsely. "It's done," she whispered. "The seal will hold. Even if more collectors come, even if they bring armies, they won't be able to break through. Not for centuries." Good. He held her tighter, breathing in her scent, grounding himself in her physical presence after the mirror's mental assault. "God, Alice, I know. I felt some of it through the bond." She touched his face gently. "But it wasn't real. None of it was real except this. Us. Here. Now." "I meant what I said," he told her. "I choose you. Whatever comes next, whatever threats we face, whatever the collectors do, I choose you. Even though I'm the reason they're targeting your kingdom? You're also the reason my kingdom still stands." He pressed a kiss to her temple. "You sealed the mirror. You guided my warriors to victory. You did in one night what centuries of my ancestors couldn't. You made this fortress truly safe. So yes, Alice, even though, always." They sat together in the chamber for a long moment, drawing strength from each other. Above them, Promise knew his warriors were driving back the remaining collectors. The immediate threat was over. But more would come. There would always be more hunters seeking power, seeking Alice, seeking to claim what should never be claimed. But they would face it together. Finally, Promise stood and pulled Alice to her feet. "Come on, let's go home." "Home," she repeated, testing the word. After 7 years of hiding, of being invisible, of having no place that was truly hers, she finally had one. "Yes, let's go home." As they climbed the stairs out of the catacombs, Alice's hand firmly clasped in his, Promise felt his wool finally settle into contentment. The restless searching that had plagued him for 7 years quieted completely, replaced by the solid certainty of having found what it had been seeking all along. When they emerged into the fortress proper, dawn light was spilling through the eastern windows. General Thorne met them in the main corridor, his armor bloodied but his expression triumphant. "The collectors have been routed, sire," he reported. "Most are dead or fled. We've captured 5 for questioning." His eyes flickered to Alice with new respect. "Your mate's markers were invaluable. We struck them before they knew what hit them." "Casualties?" Promise asked. "Minimal. A few wounded, none fatal. The servants are already tending to them." Thorne hesitated. "Sire, about Castellan, he's to be tried for treason at first light," Promise said coldly. "Make sure he understands exactly how thoroughly he failed. Not only did his betrayal not deliver what the collectors wanted, but he helped us root out every weakness in our defenses. He'll hang as an example." "Yes, sire." As Thorne left to execute his orders, Alice swayed slightly. Promise caught her immediately, concern flooding his features. "You're exhausted. When was the last time you slept?" "I don't remember," she admitted. "The last few days have been... Come." He swept her into his arms before she could protest, carrying her through the corridors toward the royal wing. Servants stopped and stared, but none dared question their king carrying the mysterious woman who had saved their fortress. "Promise I can walk," Alice protested weakly. "You can barely stand." He shouldered open the door to his private chambers and carried her inside, laying her gently on the massive bed. "Rest. We'll deal with everything else later." "But the collectors who were captured will still be there when you wake." He pulled off his boots and joined her on the bed, wrapping his arms around her. "Right now you need to sleep. And I need to hold my mate and confirm that we both survived this insanity." Alice relaxed into his embrace, her exhaustion finally catching up with her. "What happens now?" she asked softly. "When word spreads about what I am, about what I can do, then everyone will know that the woman they dismissed as a blind servant is actually the most powerful spirit weaver in generations, and my claimed mate." His voice was firm. "Let them talk. Let them whisper. You're under my protection now, and anyone who threatens you threatens me. The collectors won't give up." "No," he agreed. "They won't, but next time they come, they'll find you're not some frightened girl hiding in the shadows. You're the mate of an alpha king, protected by an entire pack, standing in a fortress you helped seal with magic that will last centuries." He pressed a kiss to her hair. "Let them come. We'll be ready." Alice's eyes were already drifting closed. "I spent 7 years convinced I had to face everything alone, that asking for help would only put people in danger. And now? Now I'm starting to understand what you meant. About strength being the choice to stand together." She tilted her head to look up at him. "Thank you. For not sending me away, for choosing me even after you knew the truth. Alice," his voice was gentle but absolute, "I would have chosen you even if you were exactly what you pretended to be. A blind servant with no power, no gift, nothing special about you except the way my wolf recognized you as mine. The spirit weaving, the magic, the ability to see what others can't, that's extraordinary. But it's not why I want you." "Then why?" "Because for 7 years, you were the only person in this entire fortress who never wanted anything from me. You didn't seek favor or position or wealth. You just existed in your quiet way, and somehow that was enough to make my wolf settle when nothing else could." He cupped her face. "You were enough before I knew about your gift. You'll be enough long after we've dealt with every collector who comes for you. You're enough, Alice, just as you are." Tears slipped down her cheeks. "I love you," she whispered. "I've loved you for so long I forgot what it felt like not to love you." "Then you have 7 years on me," Promise said with a small smile, saying, "But I'll spend the rest of my life making up for lost time." He kissed her, slow and tender and full of promises neither of them could quite put into words yet. When they broke apart, Alice was asleep in his arms, her face peaceful for the first time in 7 years. Promise held her as dawn turned to full morning, listening to her breathe, feeling the mate bond settle into place like coming home. The fortress around them stirred back to life. Servants cleaned up the damage from the night's battle. Warriors returned victorious. The captured collectors were secured in the dungeons. And in the royal chambers, an alpha king held his mate and finally understood what his wolf had been trying to tell him for 7 years. She was home, she was his, and nothing, not collectors, not curses, not the entire spirit realm itself, would take her from him. Outside the windows, the sun climbed higher, casting new light on a fortress that had survived the night's darkness. And somewhere in the catacombs far below, the obsidian mirror sat sealed and silent, its power contained by the strongest magic anyone had woven in centuries. The immediate battle was won. But Promise knew this was only the beginning. More threats would come. More collectors would seek Alice's power. The world would learn that a spirit weaver lived in his fortress, under his protection, claimed as his mate. Let them learn. Let them come. He and Alice would face it together. No more hiding, no more pretending, no more 7 years of silent longing. Just 2 souls finally, completely, irrevocably bonded. And that, Promise thought as Alice sighed in her sleep and pressed closer to him, was worth fighting for. Chapter 5. The Rift and the Choice. Alice woke to screaming. Not from outside the fortress, but from within. A sound that existed beyond hearing, a psychic shriek that tore through the stone walls and shattered windows. She bolted upright, Promise already moving, his wolf alert and ready. Around them, the fortress trembled as if something immense was tearing it apart from the inside. "The rift," Alice gasped, her eyes already glowing as her spirit sight blazed to life. "They're not retreating. They're opening it again. Bigger, wider." "Where?" Promise was already pulling on his armor. The central courtyard. They have more magic users than we thought. They're combining their power to force the seal open. She stood on shaking legs, her nightdress swirling around her. Promise, we have to stop them before... Another violent tremor cut off her words. Through the fortress walls, they could hear the distinct sound of stone cracking, the high-pitched wail of reality being torn asunder. They ran. The central courtyard was chaos incarnate. The very air was splitting open, a gaping wound between worlds that bled spectral light and ancient power. Through it came things that should never exist in the mortal realm. Shadowy entities with too many limbs, creatures of pure malevolence, beings that predated human civilization. And standing before the rift, coordinating the attack, was Ravel himself. Alive, his form flickering between solid and translucent as if he'd been partially pulled into the spirit realm. "She's coming," he said, as if he could feel Alice approaching. "I can sense her, the spirit weaver. Come, little walker, come and watch everything you love burn." Beside him stood Castellan, and this time the traitor held a blade, not of steel, but of solidified shadow, magic given physical form. And there were others. 3 more collectors Alice had never seen before, their hands moving in synchronized patterns as they poured power into the rift. "Alice, don't!" Promise grabbed her arm as she tried to surge forward. "We don't know how many there are." "Then we'll find out," she said quietly, and her eyes transformed into twin orbs of golden light. She stepped forward, and the spirit realm itself seemed to recognize her. The shadows that had been creeping through the rift recoiled from her presence as if burned. The collectors faltered in their spellwork, feeling the overwhelming weight of her power. "Stop!" Alice commanded, her voice resonating with authority that made the very stones of the fortress quiver. "You've lost. Your hunters are dead or scattered. Your plans have failed. Leave now and I'll let you live." Ravel laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Little walker, you don't understand what you're facing. This rift isn't just for capturing you anymore. We've discovered something in the spirit realm. Something that will change everything." He raised his hand toward the tear between worlds. "The gateway is opening, and nothing, not you, not your king, not all the magic your ancestors ever wove, will be able to close it." "Then I'll close it from the other side," Alice said. Promise's entire body went rigid. "No, absolutely not." But Alice was already moving forward, even as Castellan intercepted her with his shadow blade raised. The traitor's face was twisted with desperation, a man who'd bet everything and lost. "If I can't have you," he hissed, "then no one will." He brought the blade down toward her heart. Promise crossed the distance between them in a blur of movement, his wolf erupting as he shifted partially, claws extending as he intercepted the blade with inhuman speed. The shadow steel met his shifted form and shattered like glass, and Castellan stumbled backward, shock written across his features. "You dare!" the traitor began, but Promise's voice cut through like ice. "I dare everything for my mate." He struck once, and Castellan fell. There was no mercy in it, only swift judgment. The traitor hit the courtyard stones and didn't rise again. "Alice," Promise said urgently, turning back to her. "We need to fall back, regroup." "There's no time," she said, and already she was moving toward the rift. "Can't you feel it? The tear is destabilizing. If it collapses without being properly sealed, it will implode and take half the fortress with it. The backlash alone could kill thousands." "Then let the collectors seal it." "They can't." Her eyes met his, blazing with golden light and resignation. "Only a spirit weaver can seal a rift from the inside. I have to cross over. I have to anchor the seal from within the spirit realm." "No." His voice was absolute. "There has to be another way." "There isn't." She reached out and touched his face, her hand trembling. "Promise I love you. That's not going to change whether I'm in this realm or the other. But right now, this fortress, your people, they need me to be stronger than my fear." The collectors were regrouping, their spellwork intensifying. The rift was growing larger, more violent. Alice could perceive the structural damage now with her spirit sight, the cracks spreading through both worlds, reality itself beginning to splinter. "If you go through there," Promise said, gripping her shoulders, "how will you come back?" I don't know, she admitted. But I know what happens if I don't go. Everything burns, everyone dies. And the obsidian mirror, if the rift destabilizes completely, it could break the seal I just forged. It could be released. Promise's jaw clenched with the weight of the choice before them. He was a king. He was trained to sacrifice his own people for the greater good. But this? Sacrificing his mate? The one person he'd finally found after 7 years of searching? It was the cruelest choice imaginable. Then I will come with you, he said. You can't. You're not a spirit weaver. The crossing would tear you apart. Then I'll be torn apart. He pulled her close. I'm not losing you again, Alice. I won't. You're not losing me. She kissed him, desperate and fierce. You're letting me save everyone. There's a difference. Behind them, Ravel's voice rang out. Enough sentiment. Let's collapse this reality and be done with it. The collectors poured more power into the rift. It screamed, a sound like 1,000 voices dying at once. The courtyard stones began to crack, the sky above them twisting into unnatural colors as the barrier between worlds shattered further. Alice made her decision. She pulled away from Promise and turned toward the rift, her hands rising as she began to weave, not with thread or magic, but with her very essence, her life force, her soul. Golden light poured from her fingertips as she started to move toward the bleeding tear in reality. Alice! Promise reached for her, but she was already moving beyond his grasp. The remaining collectors tried to stop her, but she was faster, stronger, more powerful than any of them. With a gesture, she shattered their spell work, unraveling weeks of careful planning in seconds. Ravel tried to grab her, but golden light erupted from her body, throwing him backward with enough force to crack the courtyard stones. You can't, he started. I can, Alice said simply. And I will. She reached the rift's edge and looked back one final time. Promise stood frozen. His expression anguished, his hands half raised as if he could bridge the gap between them through sheer will alone. I love you, she said. 7 years ago, I hid my eyes to survive. Today, I'm opening them so everyone can live. Remember that. Remember that I chose this. I chose you. I chose to be brave. Alice, wait. But she was already stepping through. The transition was agony. It felt like being unmade and remade simultaneously, her body transforming into pure spirit energy as she crossed between worlds. Pain shot through every nerve, every atom of her being screaming as she shed her mortal form. But she will hold on. Her love held. The bond connecting her to Promise, that golden thread that linked their souls, held. On the other side, reality was chaos. The spirit realm was collapsing inward, reality folding onto itself like paper in fire. Alice could perceive the damage now, could see where the rift was tearing through both dimensions, could sense all the ancient magic trying desperately to hold things together. She raised her hands and began to work, the most powerful magic she'd ever woven. Not binding, not protecting, not maintaining, but sealing. True sealing. She drew on her very essence, on the bloodline gift that had been passed down through generations of spirit walkers, on the 7 years of suppressed power that had been building inside her. The threads of the spirit realm responded to her call. They rose like living things, weaving together, anchoring the rift from within. She could see the mortal realm on the other side, could see Promise standing in the courtyard, his expression devastated and determined. Their eyes met across the dimensional divide. For one perfect moment, they truly saw each other. Not the performance, not the hidden gift, not the fear or the doubt. Just Alice and Promise. Two souls bound by something far stronger than magic or destiny. Two people who had chosen each other despite every obstacle, every danger, every impossible odd. The rift began to collapse. Alice poured everything into the seal, every ounce of her power, every moment of love she'd held silently for 7 years. The threads of reality knitted together around her, and she felt herself becoming part of the barrier, no longer entirely mortal, no longer entirely spirit, but something in between. An anchor between worlds. The last thing she saw was Promise reaching toward the closing rift, his mouth forming her name. Then the barrier sealed completely. And she was alone in the spirit realm. In the courtyard, the rift snapped shut with a sound like reality being reborn. The catastrophic backlash threw everyone to the ground. Ravel screamed as the edges of the rift caught him mid-transformation, trapping him between realms in a state of eternal agony, conscious but unmade, unable to exist in either world completely. The other collectors fell silent as they felt the rift seal, realized their plan had failed, realized what Alice had sacrificed. Promise lay on the cold stone, staring at the spot where she'd vanished, unable to move, unable to speak. His wolf howled inside him, a sound of grief and loss so profound it shattered the remaining windows in the courtyard. "Sire!" General Thorne rushed to help him up, but Promise couldn't feel it. Couldn't feel anything except the sudden, terrible absence of the mate bond. No, not absent. Changed. The golden thread that had connected them was still there, but it was different now, stretched across dimensions, spanning the barrier between worlds. It felt distant, muted, but unbroken. She was alive, trapped in the spirit realm, but alive. The barrier. Alice's voice echoed from everywhere and nowhere, reverberating through the fortress walls themselves. "It's sealed. It will hold for centuries." "Alice?" Promise whispered. "Can you hear me?" "Always," came the reply, and it felt like her hand was touching his heart. "I can feel you. I'll always be able to feel you." "How do I get you back?" A pause. A long, aching pause. "I don't know," she admitted. "I'm part of the seal now. To leave would be to break it, but Promise—" Her voice strengthened. "It's not agony. The spirit realm is beautiful. I can see everything now. I understand so much." "I don't care if it's beautiful," he said fiercely. "I want you here, with me." "I know." Her presence felt closer for a moment. "But I did what I needed to do. I stopped hiding. I used my gift openly. I saved everyone. And I did it for you. For us." "This isn't goodbye," Promise said, and it wasn't a question. "No," Alice agreed. "It's not. I'm going to find a way back. There has to be a way. Across dimensions, through the spirit realm, something. I'm going to search until I find it." Promise felt some of the crushing weight lift from his chest. "And I'll be waiting, every day, every moment. I'll find my own way to bridge the gap if I have to." "I believe you," Alice said softly. "In another life, we would have had 7 years together. Maybe in this one, we'll have forever, even if it's not the way we expected." Her presence began to fade as the seal completed its work, drawing her deeper into the spirit realm. "Alice, wait. I love you, Promise Gordon. Alpha King of Ironhold, guardian of the fortress. My mate. My choice. My forever." "Alice." But she was gone, her presence in the material world completely sealed away, though the mate bond remained like an eternal promise between them. In the days that followed, the fortress was rebuilt. The collectors were executed or imprisoned. Castellan's body was disposed of, and no song was sung for his memory. The servants who'd served alongside Alice for 7 years looked at her empty quarters with new understanding, finally grasping what they'd missed while she walked among them unseen. Promise stood in the fortress library where he'd first discovered her true sight. His hands traced the ancient texts, searching for knowledge that might help him reach her. He could feel her across the dimensional barrier, a constant, comforting presence in his mind through their mate bond. But it wasn't enough. It would never be enough. Yet there was hope in that ache, because Alice was searching too. He could feel her working in the spirit realm, exploring, learning, finding ways to bridge the gap. And one day, he didn't know when, but he knew it would happen. They would find each other again. One day, the woman who had pretended to be blind for 7 years would find her way back. And this time, there would be no more hiding, no more pretending, no more separation. Just the Alpha King and his Spirit Weaver mate, finally, completely, forever united. As Promise stood in the library surrounded by centuries of wisdom, he whispered across the dimensions to the woman he loved. "I'm waiting for you, Alice Stone. Come home." And somewhere in the spirit realm, in a place between worlds where the dead walked and ancient magic slumbered, a woman's voice answered, "I'm coming home, Promise. I promise you that. I'm coming home." In the highest tower of the fortress, in a room that had once held a blind servant girl's meager possessions, a light began to glow. Not the harsh light of magic, but the warm, steady light of hope. And those who saw it knew that somewhere, across the veil between worlds, two souls were still reaching for each other, refusing to be separated by dimensions, by magic, by fate itself, because some bonds run deeper than reality. Some loves transcend all worlds, and some promises are written in the fabric of existence itself. Chapter 6. 1 year later. The fortress library smelled of old books and fresh flowers. Promise stood at the window, watching the spring sunset paint the sky in shades of amber and rose. A year. 12 months of feeling Alice's presence through their mate bond, but unable to touch her. 12 months of searching ancient texts for a way to reach her. He'd nearly given up 100 times. Then 3 days ago, he found it. "You're doing it again," came a voice, soft and achingly familiar. Promise turned, and his breath caught. Standing in the center of the library, her form shimmering slightly as if she existed between worlds, was Alice. Her eyes blazed with golden light, but they were warm, alive, aware. "Alice," he whispered, moving toward her. His hand passed through hers at first. She was still partially in the spirit realm, but the touch was enough. The mate bond blazed between them like a supernova. "The ritual," she said, her voice layered with harmonics as if speaking from two places at once. "You found it." "I found it," he confirmed. "But Alice, it requires a sacrifice. One of us would have to—" "I know." She smiled, and it broke his heart. "I read about it the moment you discovered it. I've been searching the spirit realm, Promise. I found my bloodline's origin point. I found where the first spirit walkers were born, and I found a way to anchor myself permanently in this world again." "How?" "By giving up my gift," she said simply. "The spirit sight, the weaving, all of it. I'd be mortal, completely mortal." "No." His voice was absolute. "You'd lose everything that makes you—" "I'd gain everything that matters." She stepped closer, and this time her hand held solid in his. "I'd gain you, really gain you, not across a dimensional barrier, but here, in our fortress, in our bed, in our life." Promise pulled her into his arms, and she felt real, warm, here. The mate bond thrummed with joy as it fully reconnected, no longer stretched across dimensions, but complete and whole. "Are you sure?" he asked, holding her like she might vanish. "I've had a year to think about it," Alice said against his chest, "and I realized something. My sight showed me the spirit realm, the hidden truths, the ancient magic. But you showed me something better. You showed me what it means to be truly seen by one person, to be loved not for your power, but for who you are beneath it." "I love you," Promise said fiercely. "All of you, your gift, your power, your spirit sight. But I love you most." "Then let me choose this," she whispered. "Let me choose mortality. Let me choose us." They performed the ritual at midnight in the fortress chamber where the obsidian mirror lay sealed. Alice stood at the center, her hands raised, her golden eyes blazing one final time as she deliberately, consciously, purposefully released her gift back into the spirit realm. The power flowed from her like liquid light, returning to the realms from which it came. When it was done, she was simply Alice, mortal, human, free. Promise caught her as she collapsed from exhaustion and carried her to their chambers. He laid her on their bed and held her through the night, feeling the mate bond finally settle into its complete form. No longer stretched, no longer strained, but whole. At dawn, she woke with normal eyes, not clouded with blindness or blazing with spirit sight, but warm and brown and entirely beautifully human. "Hello," she said softly. "Hello, wife," Promise replied, and slipped a ring of silver and moonstone onto her finger, a symbol of their union, their choice, their forever. Alice Stone, the spirit weaver who had pretended to be blind for 7 years, had finally learned to see clearly, not with magical sight into hidden realms, but with the clearest vision of all, the knowledge that she was home, she was loved, and she had finally chosen to stop hiding. And Promise Gordon, the Alpha King who had searched for his mate without knowing what he sought, had finally found what his wolf had known all along. That sometimes the greatest power isn't magic at all, but the choice to stand beside someone and say, "You're enough. You've always been enough." Together, they would build a new story. Not one written in spirit light and ancient magic, but in the simple, extraordinary magic of two souls finally, completely, irrevocably united. The End. Subscribe for daily werewolf romance stories with strong heroines, fated mates, and epic plot twists. Comment your favorite part of Alice and Promise story, and don't forget to grab your bonus in the pinned comment.